Hello, and welcome to our very first Information and Inspiration webinar. I'm delighted that you are here with us today. My name is Susan Paulby, and I am the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Brazelton Centre UK. And I'm delighted to chair this meeting with you today. We have an amazing lineup of speakers from a range of professions working with families and newborns. And they are going to share with us today just how they have embedded the Brazelton approach into their newborn work-related services. So welcome everybody. And welcome to our speakers, whom I will introduce as they begin their presentations. Can I remind you that there is a time for questions right at the end of the morning, about 20 minutes that we have allocated for questioning. But if you could kindly put in any questions during the morning into the Q&A, we will pick them up and hopefully be able to answer them at the end. So welcome everybody, and let me introduce our first speaker, who is Inga Nickel, who is the Director of Brazelton Centre UK. Welcome, Inga, and thank you for beginning this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. And we've got lots of people joining us at the moment, which is great. So I'm just going to do a little tech here, and then we'll hopefully get started. So I'm hoping you can see the first slide now. So setting the scene, the baby's voice, the Brazelton approach, and newborn services. So thank you for attending here today, and a very warm welcome to all of you from me also. It is so amazing to see so many people here today interested in the Brazelton approach. I believe we have got 28 countries plus the UK represented here today. And I'm really, really delighted to see that so many people, not just in the UK, are interested in this approach. And I can see from some of the attendees that some of you are really, really early from the US, and there's also some who are up very, very late. So thank you so much for joining us here today. I myself was completely blown away with how much I learned about babies' behavior when I first started the training. And it has had an enormous impact, not just on me, but the families I work with as a health visitor. It's so powerful to listen to the baby. We have planned this webinar for some time now to enable practitioners, managers, and leads to learn more about this approach and how to implement it in practice. The baby's voice is now considered in many services, and this is something that's very important to us, as we can learn so much from the individual babies. We have some beliefs which are that we believe that the opportunity to learn about baby communication should be something that's available to all parents and not just a few. We also believe that understanding newborn behavior is foundational knowledge for all practitioners working with newborn babies. And very importantly, supporting the parent-infant relationship through sharing the baby's language should be an integral part and embedded in all newborn-related care services. We and all of you know that it's well documented that the quality of the primary caregiver relationship in the early years is the bedrock for healthy social and emotional development. And with this in mind, the support given to new parents and caregivers, we believe, should be top of the agenda for all of us who are providing services for families. And practitioners have the best opportunity as those in contact with families to give their support to this developing relationship. And we strongly believe that this should not be seen as an add-on for those lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. We would love to see all families receive the support immersed into the service they are receiving. And we know this requires skilled practitioners and robust care pathways. So one of the most effective, inclusive and impactful ways to do this is to ensure that whole teams and organisations, workforces are both trained in newborn behaviour observations and implementing it into care provision. The Brazelton approach provides a strategy that is easily implemented to meet this goal. So our vision and mission is shared with all of our colleagues worldwide and many of you as well, I'm sure. And that is to create a world where newborn babies are respected and understood, so they form strong relationships with their families. And also to give newborn babies a voice and to support the parents to understand this voice. So the Brazelton approach is an approach that's utilised by practitioners that use the baby behaviour as a catalyst for understanding them as an individual and highlighting their communication. We very much believe that babies are very, very good at communicating, and we just need to stop and listen to them. And they are very capable of telling us exactly what it is that they need from their parents or caregivers. We have two approaches. We have the NBO and the NBAS. The NBO aims to strengthen the parent-infant relationship, and it is a flexible tool which can be embedded into all care that supports the early relationship. The NBAS is a comprehensive neurobehavioral profile of the baby, which is often used in research as it provides a very detailed profile of the individual baby, but it is also used by practitioners in some settings working with specific group of babies or parents. But I myself have used it with all families, and it's a wonderful approach to use to learn a lot of details about the individual babies. So the Brazelton Centre offers training in understanding baby behaviour. The NBAS is the most comprehensive newborn assessment developed looking at the competencies of the newborn baby. The assessment has 53 items, of which 28 are behavioural items, 18 reflex items, and 7 supplementary items, which capture the behaviour of the high-risk infant. It can be used with infants aged 0 to 2 months. The NBO has 18 behavioural items, and its primary goal is to promote healthy parent-infant relationships, which is achieved by forming a relationship with the parents and sharing observations of their baby together. Each of these items helps us create a profile for the individual baby, identifying both their strengths and also their sensitivities, where they need support regards to their development at that particular time. The NBO can be used from birth to 3 months of age. Both are aimed to be used within the first 100 days to promote a positive relationship and best outcomes for the individual baby. So, as you can see here on this slide, the Brazelton approach is used worldwide, and it's great to see so many of you here today. But today our focus is on how the Brazelton approach is used in the UK. We are very fortunate to have so many colleagues all over the world, which provides us with an opportunity to learn together about babies in so many different cultures and family settings. It makes us so rich, and we value that so much. And just to say that we do offer 8 fully funded bursaries to practitioners working with babies in low middle income countries. And you can find more information about that on the website. And that's every year we award 8 places. So we have been talking to some of our practitioners who use the NBAS and the NBO around the world, and a full report will be available soon for you to read. I have borrowed just 2 sentences from this report, as the NBO and NBAS has had such an impact on individuals who've received our bursaries. Here are just two snippets from Linus Mahon, a family therapist in Zimbabwe, and Dr. Asma Sadek, a neonatologist and lactation consultant in Egypt. And I did not know they were going to attend this webinar today, but I believe that you're both here. So thank you so much for sharing your experience of using, you are both using the NBAS. So Linus says, in the NBAS, we're saying behavior is the language for the child. Society is built by families. If the family is dysfunctional, then society is dysfunctional. We need to understand the importance of focus on the baby and include them in the discussion. And thank you so much, Linus, for sharing that. And Asma in Egypt says, the NBAS NBAS training gave me more respect for babies as human beings from day zero, and not just day zero, but from in utero. What we see in the baby on day zero is a reflection of the utero lives. Thank you, Asma, for sharing that. And you will be able to read a full report on this very soon, which you'll find on our website. So you may be wondering whether the NBO or the NBAS are used by others with your profession. So here's an overview of the professions who were taught the NBO in 2022. And as you can see, there are practitioners from the public health nursing team, children's centres, OTs, Dad Matters, perinatal mental health teams, and you will hear from all of those today. But we've also taught a wide range of other therapists, NICU staff, and many other different practitioners, such as sleep consultants, doulas, chiropractors, and many, many more. Basically, if you work with babies from birth to 3 months, this is suitable for you and your service. So we have got the NBO and the NBAS referred or recommended in a wide range of documents. And here are just a few of them. And you will see more links of that again on our website. But I just wanted to highlight two that were published recently last year. So we were very pleased to read The Voice of the Infant, which was published by the Scottish Government in 2023. And this paper states that a baby should be actively listened to and that professionals should acknowledge what they're seeing and hearing, both to the baby and to their carer. The guideline also emphasised that we have a duty to ensure that what we learn from babies is acted upon, and an example of good practice is provided by professionals, including Dr. Angela McCaughlin, using the NBO and NBAS with a family. We were also delighted to see that UNICEF provided an example with some evidence of the impact of the NBO in their recent publication, Understanding and Supporting Mental Health in Infancy and Early Childhood. So why is embedding the Brazelton approach important at a service level? We have seen a greater impact and inclusion for all families, which is very important. We have seen an increase in knowledge and competence in understanding newborn behaviour, particularly in healthcare professionals who have used the NBO and the NBAS in their work. And we've certainly also seen an increase in understanding baby behaviour and language in parents. And when used by whole teams, it becomes a way of working, providing individualised care to their families. So the NBO and the NBAS can be used in both universal and specialist services, and we're going to hear from different practitioners today how they use the Brazelton approach in their services. So I am sure you're also, and there has been some questions regarding training, certification and implementation process, and I hope you will hear more about that from some of the speakers here today. But the training is 2 days, which is delivered by 2 trainers, and this can be online or face-to-face. We do bespoke training for different organization, or if you're an individual, you can book onto our national courses and you can join a group of lots of other different practitioners from the UK and sometimes also from different parts of the world. Once you've attended your 2-day training, there's a practice phase. And this is where all trainees continue to be supported by the trainers, both through email and through online support sessions, which take place on Zoom. Certification in the NBO is achieved by submitting case studies, and the NBAS is achieved over a longer period of practice and by demonstrating competency through demonstration of an NBAS and scoring with a trainer. We hope that you might be thinking about introducing the Brazelton approach in your setting. And if so, I am sure you'll find it helpful to listen to the other speakers today, and you will also have an opportunity to ask questions. We're always very happy to support you in writing implementation plans, which support the trainees to complete certification and think about where it fits in your care pathways. So thank you. And please do ask any questions through the question and answer throughout the webinar, and we will do our very best to answer as many of them at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga, for that, for setting the scene for the Brazelton approach. And I'm delighted now to introduce Anulika Ifezue, who is a health visitor. Hello, Anulika. And she is going to talk to us about how she's embraced and embedded the Brazelton approach into her work and her team's work in Manchester. So thank you, Anulika.
Susan, thank you everybody for attending this webinar today. I am going to zoom into Manchester to help us see what we've done and maybe begin to think about how you can now implement the Brazelton approach, how you will go about it, all the way to where we are at the moment. So I am going to look at every baby at the center of care, what a lot of organizations will describe as person-centered care, and how that applies to Manchester Health Visiting Service when we're thinking of individualized approach to all the babies, to all the children, and in effect, helping parents to find who their babies are and who their baby is, to help them provide the best care for each child, not in comparison to any other child, but a child for the baby that they've got. So in general, in Manchester, newborn behavioral observation is a universal provision for all the families that access the health visiting service. And the health visiting service is a universal provision for every child from 28 weeks gestation in utero until the child is 5 years old. We are public health nurses, so all the health visitors are either midwives by background, or they are adult nurses or pediatric nurses by background. Then we have to go back to the university to study to become public health nurses or health visitors. So the way we have done it is to see newborn behavioral observation as part of the integral provision we give to families in Manchester. So I usually describe this journey using the tree. And often some people will say, oh, it's the embo tree. Yes, I think I'll call it the embo tree as I go through this explanation. So in Manchester, we have what we call the Healthy Child Program, which is what is available for every child in England. And the Healthy Child Program are those times in a child's life when they have to be visited, they have to be seen. There is opportunity for public health, interaction with the parents, opportunity to see where the child is at and give advice and look at what that family is needing. It's a whole system approach where we're looking at the babies and we're also looking at the family. And that Healthy Child Program, every child will be seen within the first 14 days post-delivery. We call it the new birth visit. And then they are seen again when that baby is 6 to 8 weeks old. And that's another Healthy Child Program visit. And what we did is to look at the newborn behavioral observation as a tree, where we're going to hang in all the public health advice, all the things and the assessment that we're meant to be doing, considering that newborn behavioral observation is not an assessment, but from understanding the baby, the parents will be able to understand who their baby is, what the baby is asking for, what the needs might be, and then what the care provision for each child should be. So in effect, we have the newborn behavioral observation as a starting point. So instead of going into the house and beginning to ask questions and as if you're kind of interviewing parents and as if you're in a position of interviewing, we're actually doing things. And in the 6 to 8 weeks visit as well is when we do what we call the developmental review, the first developmental review of that child using the ages and stages questionnaire. So instead of going in and just doing the ages and stages questionnaire where you're going to be finding whether there's an anomaly, whether that child is meeting the milestone, we use the newborn behavioral observation. Yes, we might be able to see areas where that child might not be hitting the milestone, but then the parents will also be able to see a lot of strength and individuality of that child, with which they will now use to support that child in their growth and development. It's also a route for building relationship and alliance between us and parents and families. So they see us, when the parents see us, they see us as somebody who has come in to be part of their journey. It helps to build trust. There is less suspicion of who we are and what we do. And then within the newborn behavioral observation, we're now able to attach those public health messages such as safe sleep, such as tummy time, feeding issues, and issues regarding sleep, issues regarding parent-infant relationship is built into that newborn behavioral observation. So in effect, it is not just doing the items, but it's an opportunity to just stay. And there is also opportunity to support parents about their parental mental health, and then to look for areas of sensitivity where the child might be communicating things regarding how sensitive they are, any evidence of fragility, and also to look at parental anxiety post-delivery and support them through that. So how did we do it? A general overview of what we did was in the United Kingdom, there was a launch of the 1001 Critical Days manifesto, which is from conception to the first 2 years of life, being very critical for when the formation of that baby is taking place. And understanding that investment in the early years, in that very first few years of a child's life, is very important when we're thinking of the overall outcome for that baby. So when the 1001 Critical Days manifesto was launched, we started thinking of what to do to build in infant mental health and parent-infant relationship into our practice. So in 2017, we managed to get the funding and we started the rollout of the newborn behavioral observation for all the health visitors. And one of the key things about what we did in Manchester is to make sure that it's not a postcode lottery. Wherever you are in Manchester practicing as a health visitor, you should have the skills to be able to deliver the newborn behavioral observation within your practice. So we got the first funding, and the funding was to train everybody. By 2018, we have trained 149 health visitors. And the next thing we did was, while we're training, to have a support system in place for not just the training, but for supervision. And that included peer supervision, looking for champions, developing champions, and that supported the health visitors through the process of certification. Because it is not just the training, we have to look for the aspect of validity so that people are able to deliver the newborn behavioral observation effectively. Because often, as medical practitioners, we tend to fall back into assessment and trying to find problems, trying to find fixing problems. However, when they are supported to be competent, then they are now able to deliver the newborn behavioral observation as written and as expected. Then the next thing we did was to secure funding, because every year there will be new health visitors that will be trained in Manchester. There will be people that will be joining the workforce. And we want to make sure that when people are joining the workforce, we have the ability to train them. So we secured the annual training funding. The annual training funding is now in place because it is part of the integral provision for health visiting. When we're thinking about clinical competence and the competence of the practitioners, we have that embedded. So it is now fully embedded into Manchester. And then the next thing that happened in Manchester was a spread. Okay, all the services that work with families started thinking about doing newborn behavioral observation, what I describe as a piggyback, because already there is a structure in place. And that service included some of the early years service. The Thriving Babies project is a project in Manchester that works with families where there are a lot of additional need. For example, families that might have social services involvement might be at the age of social services involvement, and we train the first 15. And then they have their support system from the health visiting service to go through their certification. So thinking about how to go about it, I just thought I need to think of strategic thinking. The leadership structure of organizations that will look at perinatal and infant mental health as a way forward. So what we did is Manchester was the appointment of a specialist health visitor for perinatal and infant mental health. Of course, I was in that position and I'm still in that position, although I've taken additional role on top of it. And what I did was to make sure there is a system in place, the pathways, the policies, the standard operating procedure for what to do. And then we agreed the training pathway, we agreed the competency framework. So we looked at the infant mental health competency framework, and we looked at perinatal mental health competency framework and thought of how to bring it into what we are doing. We thought about record keeping, documentation, because the newborn behavioral observation needs to be documented in our already existing record. And it was a time when we're going into the electronic recording system. And we used the electronic recording system that didn't have the newborn behavioral observation or the newborn assessment scale built in the system. So I had to work with an IT, with the informatics to make sure that we built the template. So already there's a template in place by the time we started rolling out the training, so that practitioners have something in place for how they would document it. And then, of course, the system for supervision and the support, the ongoing learning was put in place, and then the strategic leadership for internal and external collaboration. So currently in Manchester, we have a GM approach. GM simply means Greater Manchester approach to the Brazelton approach. So what I do is every year, we have to do a newborn behavioral observation training, but I might not have the number in Manchester. I will reach out to the neighboring local authorities, the neighboring organizations, and ask them if they have staff that they want to train. So I need to get about 16 people to come together. So the recent one we did last year, we had about 4 different organizations come together to do the newborn behavioral observation. So I've talked about the process of funding for the training in 2017, the structure for the rollout of the training. The way I did it is to think about change management when we started rolling it out. It's important that the most enthusiastic of your staff are trained first, because when they are trained first, they're more likely to come along with it. So what I did was to advertise the first training, put it out. I didn't put out the whole training. I didn't say, send your staff to come to the training. I just said, I've got this training. And then the people that really wanted to do it came out. So I had the initial 40. By the time I trained that initial 40 and they was going through their certification, they were now in place. And I made sure that those 40 came from different teams. So for every team, there will be about 1 or 2 people that have been trained, that will be around to support the people that will come later on, the people that will need, the managers to say to them, you really have to do the training. So the support, that's why I described the enthusiastic first and the vision for NBAS practitioners in Manchester. We have NBAS practitioners working alongside. And the NBAS practitioners also sit within teams, but what they have is like, you have about 1 NBAS practitioner for about 2 teams. So they support the NBO, and they're also to pick up when there is an additional need where we need to go back and use the NBAS to work with the family. So I've talked about the electronic recording system that is now built in. I've talked about system building to include NBO and the NBAS template in our recording system. I've looked at the internal system for continuous support and certification, the system from the Brazelton Center. So we have good alliance with the Brazelton Center. I will only need to email or pick up my phone call and somebody will respond. And of course, because we have the support system through the trainers in the Brazelton Center, the staff in Manchester can join the webinars and they can be supported. And then, of course, we have the support from our managers, and then we have the leadership support. It's really important that we have the managers and the leaders come on board. For a lot of the managers, they don't go out to work with families, but some of them decided to come and do the training. And what they did was they just wanted to have a feel. And some of them didn't do the training. They just said they're going to come and sit in for the first hour, or to sit in for the second hour, or to sit in for half a day or for a whole day, not the 2 days. Well, in effect, what we are trying to do is to, just to get a feel of what it is. So when the managers are enthusiastic and the leadership support is in place, we now have, again, the GM, the Greater Manchester system-wide NBAS and NBO support. So where I need some support, I can always reach out to Tameside or to Bolton. I just need to send an email to the clinical leads for Perinatal or for Parental and mental health and say to them, I'm running an NBO training. Have you got staff? And then it's kind of a whole system approach to work it. So the benefit for parents and practitioners, what we have seen so far. For parents, I put out some of these quotes because these are some of the quotes that came out of the evaluation. This is the Brazelton evaluation form that we give out to parents. So one of the moms says, in her own writing, I just screenshotted and cut out a quote. Baby has been responding more when I try new things. I've been playing more with my baby and trying to respond. I can manage better now. I can let him be who he is without trying to change him, and let him guide me on what he wants to play. And that helps me to stop overstimulating. And then you see the other one that said, thank you. That visit was amazing. Thank you for insisting on it and making it happen so soon. She taught me things about him that I hadn't realized. I didn't know. Today is such a better day. He went to sleep at 11:50. Jason is a different name. I just used the synonym, a pseudonym there. Jason went to sleep at 11:50 at the end and is still asleep 2 hours later. Mom said, I can't believe I'm now having time to myself. I've eaten lunch and everything. She's happy that she now has strategies to use in caring for him. This is from the health visitor. And she copied some of the quotes from the mom, and then she added this quote and sent it to me. I'm just going to give us a quick story of a baby that I went out to see. The health visitor is going out to see this mom. Using the NBO, she's seen the mom and the baby, and she just said to me, Anulika, I think you need to go and see this parent. There's a lot of unrealistic expectation. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. And it was a baby that was born with craniosynostosis, a baby that was born with the brain sutures fused. And when I went in and I saw this parent, the mom was far away removed from the baby. The dad was coming a bit closer. And of course, what was sitting on that table that day was craniosynostosis, and they couldn't go beyond it. A mom said to me, I don't really want to invest into this, because she's gone into Google and she's seen a lot of, things on Google that tells her that this child might likely have autism. And the more she looked at that baby, she wasn't ready to invest. She wasn't ready to commit. She said she didn't want to put in too much. Dad was trying a bit, but then of course there was that pull away from their baby. I said to them, let's have a look at your baby. Let's look at her together. First child, first baby. I said, let's look at your baby together and see what your baby is trying to tell us, because every baby speaks through their behavior, and every baby is an individual. And that will help us to understand where she is and where she's going and where we might be going with her. And then I started using the newborn behavioral observation, which they help us to use. But on that day, I decided to move a little bit further into using the newborn assessment scale. Just a lot of the content of the newborn behavioral observation, but just move a little bit and add a little bit more item. And it was a social interactive item. The more we went with this baby, because it wasn't me doing things, it was the baby doing things. And mom was moving. Initially, she started leaning forward, and she said, oh my goodness. When this baby was looking and following and interested, and then she spoke, and this baby turned to her, she just thought, oh, the baby was, they were preparing the baby for surgery, and she was worried about that surgery because the surgery is going to take place in the next 2 weeks. She was worried about the surgery. She was worried about everything. And suddenly she leaned forward. She came forward and she said to me, it's all right. Could she do that? So she could see the strength in her baby that she could hold on to take the next step. That did not remove the craniosynostosis. It didn't remove the fact that they were going to have the surgery, but she saw her baby. She met her baby for the first time. By the time I was leaving that house, I saw this mom holding her baby, looking at her. I think that might have been the very first time she looked at this child. So, to all the managers, what I would say to us is, it is cost effective. It doesn't add additional money, additional time, additional money. Instead, these parents are less likely to keep coming back with a lot of worry. It empowers practitioners, it is time saving, and it doesn't add more time to the practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anulika, for such a riveting story. And I'm sure that many managers who are listening will be inspired. And thank you for such a detail of how to go about embedding the Brazelton approach in your service. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Remind you that if you want to ask Anulika questions, can you put them in the Q&As, and we will collect them, and we will try to answer them at the end. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to invite two people from Dad's Matter, Kieran Anders and Michael Cullen, to tell us a little bit about how the NBO approach is embedded into their work with dads. So welcome to you both, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think Mick's been called Michael for a long time. It's
Sunday name.
very formal. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here. We've been using the NBO for quite a while now at Dad Matters, and I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of what we do, and then Mick's going to take you through how we use the Embo and the outcomes that we get. So we are probably the only perinatal and parent-infant focused peer support service for dads. We cover around 30 areas of the UK. We have 10 coordinators in Greater Manchester and a further 20 coordinators in different places across the UK. We support dads with attachment and bonding, with acknowledging their mental health and accessing support for that, and then also accessing support for other things that they might not realise that they need. We've been going for 7 years in May. We were created in Tameside within the parent-infant mental health pathway in Tameside that was then shared across Greater Manchester. We feel, in Greater Manchester in particular, we feel embedded in that perinatal pathway. We work with midwives, health visitors, adult mental health services, perinatal mental health staff, maternal mental health staff, mother and baby units, rainbow clinics, and a whole host of professionals. And our model relies on us reaching dads rather than dads reaching us. We don't wait for dads to need support for us to be able to go and talk to them, offer them support, offer them advice, really help them to acknowledge that becoming a new parent is difficult and what that might look like for them, and find support for that. So when we first started 7 years ago, the Embo was one of the tools that our early attachment service recommended. And actually, I think I did my Embo in 2019, literally the week before lockdowns. So no, 2020, very early on. And I found it really practical, because before that, dads would tell us that a lot of the things that we were talking to them about felt quite abstract, and they couldn't see it in real time. They didn't see the benefits in real time. So using the Embo became a very practical tool for us to use. That's kind of all I'm going to say. If you want to talk more about Dad Matters UK and how we're spreading and the work that we do, you can get in contact through our website or through social media. And I'll hand over to Mick, who will share some slides and take you through how we use Embo. Thanks, Mick.
Cheers, Kieran. Quite interesting and daunting to follow Anulika, because Anulika did my training, or part of my training, on the Embo. So hopefully I'm going to live up to that training now and explain how we use the Embo at Dad Matters. So as Kieran mentioned, we work with a wide variety of dads across our areas, and the Embo is really key to what we do. So hopefully I can get my slides working. There we go. And we'll start with just a picture of me doing an Embo, my first ever Embo that I did. It was quite daunting, quite scary, but straight away we can see how engaged baby is with the red ball. And I remember the mum at the time, because Dad wasn't there for this particular one, but the mum just being blown away, and this was her third child, but just really taking in what was going on and being surprised at what baby was capable of. So, as Kieran mentioned, we support dads to have the best possible relationship with their families, because we believe in giving babies the best start in life. We want dads to help with that. We want dads to be able to know what their role is. They often do feel like a bit of an accessory when the baby's so little. So the Embo is a great tool to help change that. It really complements the work that we do. It backs up everything that we are telling these parents about their babies and their children. And certainly, like I say, in the early days of a baby's life, it's going to really help a dad get to understand his baby and understand what his baby needs and what his baby's asking of him as well. Those things that we don't realise are going on in the background. So we felt it was really important that we train all of our staff. So all of our coordinators get trained in the Embo. We include this in mandatory training. So when we obtain funding for a new member of staff, the funding is built in specifically so that we can access the Embo training. So like I say, every single one of our coordinators up and down the country gets the Embo training. We use that knowledge on a daily basis as well, and we can see the first-hand positive effects, even in small doses. So we'll see dad sometimes on a walk and talk, so we might be in a local park, and we'll see an interaction that a dad has with his baby, and he might not notice what's happened, but we can use what we know about the Embo to help that dad shape what's happening with his baby and his relationship. And it really helps build that serve and return between the dad and the baby as well, because they start seeing a positive effect of what's going on. So like I say, working in tandem with the Brazelton Centre has really helped us build our knowledge and just complement what it is that we do. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about my embo journey. As I mentioned before, Anulika did my training. She may remember some of this when I talk about it, because it was undertaken face-to-face in November 2020. And it was just as second lockdown was kicking in. The first day was before lockdown, and the second day, that night, was announced that we were going into second lockdown. Luckily, we were allowed to carry on and do the... Sorry, I'm just moving on. Luckily, we was allowed to carry on and do the training. So myself and two of my colleagues, we set off for the 2-day face-to-face training course. I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time, but she was not really into a doll phase, and we needed a movable doll. So I brought Buzz Lightyear along with me. So Buzz Lightyear, he had movable arms, he had movable legs. That might be the bit that Anulika remembers. I also brought Woody and Jessie as well, because he needed some company just to make sure that he was okay. But it literally was the only movable doll I could find in the house at the time. So off we set with eager anticipation of what lay ahead. So obviously it was a 2-day course we did. Me and a couple of my colleagues, Dan and Nick, who are on that picture there with their dolls as well. We did the training, obviously socially distanced there because of the time of year it was. And it was really inspiring. The training was brilliant. The level it was delivered at was just, it was perfect. It was at a pace that really worked. It was easy to follow. It didn't overstimulate, and it didn't bore you at the same time. We covered all aspects of the embo as well, including its history, how to use it, and the effects it has on babies. So once it was completed, like I say, second COVID lockdown stopped us before we got going, because once it was completed, we were raring to go. We wanted to do these. We want, it's a race of who can get to the 5 first, who gets a certificate. But we really wanted to get to work and to show the dads that we were working with this. But it became really difficult because, like we said, lockdown had kicked in, and we was really struggling there to access dads, and particularly dads with newborn babies at that time. Luckily, once we were able to and back out in the open, I managed to find my first embo, my daughter's nursery. Thankfully, one of the parents had a baby, so they allowed me to perform the embo. And it was terrifying doing my first one because it'd been a big delay. It'd been 11 months because of lockdown. 11 months had passed, and I felt I'd forgotten things. So I watched loads of videos before I went. I reread all my notes, went through everything. So I went there and managed to get that first one done. And once it started, it flowed so easily. It was textbook. Everything went how it should have gone with that baby. And it was really, really perfect. I think the only thing we didn't get was crying. So we couldn't show the response to crying, but everything else was superb. So that was it then. Once I'd done my first one, 11 months later, the race to 5 was on. So the loss of momentum was quite tough because, like we say, we had the lockdown, we then had that 11-month gap, and it was difficult then to get ourselves moving. But luckily, another baby came along not too long after. The second embo was completed, and again, there was another big gap. But I found that whilst doing them, every baby was different. Each embo that I did was so different, and I was learning so much more about my role and about how I interact with parents and about how I educate them, thanks to what the embo had taught me. It really was giving dads a better understanding of babies and their impact. It can't be underestimated the effect an embo has to a parent, but particularly a dad, because as I mentioned very early on, dads sometimes do feel like a little bit of a spare part, and showing them that they are able and capable of doing things that will improve their baby's life, will enhance their baby's life, and will help communication with their babies. It gives them a bit between their teeth. It really makes them want to do more. If you show a dad that they're doing something positive for their baby, they will do that time and time again. And the embo is ideal for that because it captures it at such an early stage that dads will really carry on and move forward. One of the things that I did notice was how postnatal depression made a difference. 2 of the 5 embos that I did, there was postnatal depression in mother present. One was very mild and one was quite severe. And it was amazing how that made it much more difficult to perform the embo because that baby needed a lot more support. That baby needed a lot more comfort. And one of the mums in particular, the only way she could do it at the time was to put baby to breast. That was all she had in her locker at that time. Luckily, as I was leaving, the health visitor was arriving. So we had a little chat. And I also spoke with the dad. And it really helped to open that door to further support. We're part of the Home Start charity. So I was able to then get a referral to Home Start for that mum with mum and dad's consent. And it led to the support that they'd been lacking. And it really made a difference. And about a year later, this dad contacted me out of the blue. He gave me a call and he wanted to meet for a brew just to let me know how much of an impact we'd had on that family's life. And he said, had it not been for that day, for me going there doing the embo, he doesn't know what would have happened and where they would have been, because me going showed him his role as a dad and what he could do to support mum, but it also got mum that extra support. They were a year down the line. Mum had got away from needing support and actually wanted to volunteer then for Home Start. So it was a real, round robin of a story. It came round to a perfect conclusion. But again, the embo just really helped to enhance that. And that was my proud moment because as well, it led to the certificate. So I think I'm currently the only fully certified staff member because we don't see a lot of newborn babies. It's difficult for us. We tend to get dads where baby's a bit older. So we've all done a few embos, but we're trying to get more and more going. If you do want to read a little bit more about my embo journey, I've explained it quite in detail there, but there is a blog on our website. So the address is there. If you just visit our website, dadmatters.org.uk, there's a blog section and my embo journey is on there, which is good to read. But moving on from that, what does the embo mean to dads? So it changes the perception of what the baby's capable of. I mentioned earlier about how dads really get empowered once they see what's going on with their baby and they see the impact they can have. They'll do more. They'll take more of a leading role. We show them how interactive and intuitive baby is, and they really change their attitude. Some dads, particularly when they're back in work, they'll walk through the door at the end of the day and ignore the baby because it's bedtime and mum's just getting baby to bed, or they might do a little hello and a cooey face and then go downstairs and get the tea on or do something different. Whereas once they see what baby's capable of, they like to take over. They'll take a leading role in the looking after as well around how the baby's developing. They see that crawl response, they see the motor responses, they see them following voices, and it really makes them think, oh, actually, I can do this, I can help with that. So yeah, it gives them a lot more education around what's going on. And as I said, it empowers them to take a more active role. And the benefits to the baby, it helps improve their baby's development. Again, I mentioned before, it can't be underestimated the power that it gives a parent to know that they are able to influence a baby at such a young age and that their baby is influencing them as well. Their baby's communicating with them. And once they know that, they get the bit between the teeth and they really go for it. And it gives the dads a sense of belonging as well. So I mentioned before, dads feel like a spare part, but it brings them back into the family and it stops that distance coming in where mums and dads are drifting apart because mum's doing everything and dad's struggling because he doesn't know his role. So it really helps just to bring the family back together and support everybody in what they're doing. And what does the embo mean to us? So us as staff at Dad Matters, it's, as I've mentioned to me, it's massively helped my work as well. But we've got some quotes from 3 of our staff as well. So the first one, we've got, it really helps you to understand the baby states and how to explain them to a dad, which aids them with attachment and bonding. And that was from Mike, who's our health and equalities coordinator. So Mike deals with dads that may have learning difficulties, SEND needs, maybe from minority backgrounds or communities, but he's using the embo to help show them dads and create that attachment and bond with dads that maybe wouldn't understand it in any other way. We've also got dads mostly feel disengaged from the baby until they realise they can do stuff with them. Showing a dad what his baby is capable of from the first few hours of birth empowers them and empowers them to understand how that engagement works. So that was from Wes, who's our petals coordinator. So he deals with dads who may have suffered trauma during birth or previous loss of a baby. And again, it's just showing them dads that they can do things, giving them dads that role and giving them that power to be able to do what they want to do with their babies. And then the final quote we've got, I found it to be fantastic in helping dads connect to their babies. I'm always excited when I get a referral with an under 3-month-old. And that's from Robbie, who's our Surrey coordinator. Now, he went on to add, I'm going to read some of my notes here because he gave us a real long, succinct message which perfectly explained it. So he's put, performing the EMBO over the last few years has shown dads just how interactive and intuitive the babies are, even from the early stage. Oh no, this is my notes. I need to get the other notes. Sorry about that. No, we've got best example is a dad who was self-referred saying he was struggling to bond with his newborn and didn't understand his firstborn daughter, as his firstborn daughter, he hadn't struggled with it. So this was his second baby, but he was struggling with that bond. So we talked about skin to skin and the like, but sorry, I can't say that, but he felt that he just didn't know what his baby wanted and couldn't settle him. I went round and did the EMBO and helped Dad see how well he already knew his baby and how he could comfort him and how engaged by Dad's face he was. Later that day, Dad messaged me to say that his son had been exhausted after the EMBO, which generally does tend to be quite common, and he slept on Dad's chest for 4 hours for the first time ever. Now Dad is securely bonded to baby and Mum says that Dad is his favourite now. Baby sleeps in a sling on Dad's chest most times when we meet for a walk. So that just shows the power of doing that EMBO. It's changed that dad's relationship completely to not having a bond, struggling and feeling like he doesn't know his baby, to being the favourite, as it quotes there. And showing parents that is really powerful. And that's where we want to help dads do that. Mums tend to feel that bond a little bit better. So we want to help dads get that bond as well. And that's how we do it. So I hope that's been helpful. And any questions, do put them in the chat for later on. Thank you.
No, it's wonderful to hear your reflections for Dad's Matters. It's so important to involve all the family. And I think you've shown us just how important it is for dads as well, and how you've managed to incorporate that embed it into your service, and it's obviously made a huge difference to many fathers out there. And although the last 2 talks have been about a universal service, so anybody can ask for an EMBO, and people are trained to the health professionals are trained to give that EMBO. It also emphasizes the uniqueness of every child. As you've said, every child is different. And I think that's what's so important to remember and to demonstrate to the families. So thank you very much. And one little phrase that I think I've heard before, but I heard it clearly from you, is that families are blown away when they see just what their newborn can do and how that newborn can communicate. Which is wonderful. So thank you both very much for joining the webinar today. Thank you. So now we move on to Elaine Mahon, and hi there, Elaine. And she's representing Neonatal Care. So we look forward to hearing you as an occupational therapist and how you've used and embedded the Brazelton Approach into your service. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. That's really lovely. And we've had some amazing talks this morning. They're really inspiring. So I'll take you on a little journey in a different direction towards neonatal care. Let me share my screen. So I am an occupational therapist and I work on a level 2 and a level 1 neonatal unit. Let me make sure that you can see my slides fully. And so I work with parents and infants on the neonatal unit. as well as following them up post-discharge. So I see babies that are at high risk of developmental needs up until they're 2 and 4 years of age. And I also accept referrals from the community for any babies or children under the age of 2 with developmental needs. So I guess the Brazelton approach, I trained in it many years ago. And I think, like Inga had said earlier, it really just transforms the way you're able to observe an infant. And that makes such a difference on how you are able to support the baby's voice and how you can reflect that with parents, and help to really understand what a baby's individual skills are, what their strengths, what their needs are, and really look at the baby to see, well, what are you telling me? How can I help you? What are your next steps? How can we support you as a family? So I think that's the Brazelton approach has been really inspiring in that way. So I think I've just moved one of my videos. Okay, perfect. So from this neonatal perspective, I think when we're on a neonatal unit, if some of you have worked in a neonatal unit, you may have had a baby that's been on a neonatal unit. It's a very different world to be invited to. It's an unexpected place that parents end up. It's a place that parents typically will say, oh, I never even knew about a neonatal unit. Some parents might say, well, I've heard of one of my friends who needed to be on a neonatal unit, but I didn't really understand it. And I think they can be very different places, and you often have very fragile infants. You have parents who have either had previous children where they have experience maybe of a different birth, but typically it will be a traumatic experience for parents. So in any way that we can support helping to understand the baby's unique cues is really important for being able to support their care as a whole team. So as an occupational therapist, I will be working with parents directly, but also be working as part of the wider medical team and therapy team to really understand the baby's needs and then manage and tailor their care according to the baby's needs. So when you work on a neonatal unit for a long time, it can become second nature. So they are often very welcoming places. The staff that are drawn to neonatal care tend to be, very welcoming, very reassuring, very highly skilled, and also the level of emergency that sometimes is present on a neonatal unit is something that is attractive to some people. So it can be that the neonatal unit is kind of an enjoyable place to work because you're doing really vital care. But from a baby's perspective, it's a very unusual place to be experiencing. It's an unusual place for them to come and be welcomed into the world. They will have a lot of different experiences, like you can see on our baby on the screen, that there will be different sorts of touch. There will be many medical procedures that happen. And so their early experiences will really be influenced by the early care that babies receive and also by the early experiences that they have with their parents. So when we're there every day, for those of you that are in neonatal care, it can often be easy to overlook, especially those that work there every day, how extraordinary a place the newborn intensive care unit is. When babies are on the neonatal unit, we really are creating an environment for their brains to grow. We're creating an environment for them to be more medically stable. And so it's really important that we're mindful of every experience and interaction that a baby has when they're at this fragile state. When we think about brain development in this stage, so for our babies that are on a neonatal unit, there will be a proportion of babies that will have been born early. So they may have been born as early as 22 weeks gestation. And we also have our cohort of babies that are maybe born at term that have had complications, that they've been unwell, they may have gotten infections, or they may have had brain insults that have happened early on. And so the fragility of the babies on the unit may be different according to their gestational age and their needs. And so using approaches that really understand a baby's unique cues is really important. For our babies who are born very early on the unit, they are likely to spend a prolonged period of time. And really the unit will be the experiences that are going to be shaping their development. So in this picture, you can see different shapes of brains and how they look like they're maturing across time. So if you look at the brain of a baby at about 25 weeks gestation, you can see that it's nicely formed. It doesn't have the intricacies that are starting to develop by week 30 and week 33. And by the time we come to term, we have a much more defined brain that has a lot more intricacies. There will be a lot more connections that have happened. And so the development across that last trimester, where a cohort of our babies will be on a neonatal unit, will be shaped according to their early experiences. And so the change in the brain growth between that in that last trimester, so the weight of the brain actually increases by about 400% in the last trimester. And so that's equivalent to how much the brain will grow in weight from when a baby is term age until they're 18 years of age. So the amount of brain development, the number of connections that are happening within that last trimester is really unmatched at any other point in an individual's life. So it's really important the type of experiences that we are exposing our babies to early on. And so every care, every interaction that we have for a baby, every opportunity we have to be able to understand the baby's cues, see their strengths, observe their challenges, and put a plan in place in order to be able to make as much of a positive experience as can be within that fragile state is really important. And obviously parents have to be central within that care. And so if we can use approaches that are then supporting that early infant-parent relationship for parents to be able to understand their infant's cues as early as possible, we are going to shape those early experiences for the baby in a more positive way. And so it really is true, this saying, if some of you have heard it before, neurons that fire together, wire together. So this is according to whether a baby has a positive or a negative experience. So we really have to be mindful as professionals working in a neonatal unit that this is a unique experience for infants. We need to be supporting infants in as much of a positive way as possible, because the amount of connections that are happening for a baby within that time period are so vast that literally every care and interaction can make an impact on their long-term developmental outcomes. And so we are very mindful on neonatal units about using practices of care that are tailored to a baby's individual needs, and working as a multidisciplinary team with the infant and parents at the center of that team in order to be able to create as positive an environment as possible. Sometimes that's to do with the amount of sounds that are in the environment, so making sure things are more hushed. Sometimes it's about making sure that babies are protected from light by a certain gestational age. The most important thing that we're really trying to work on is having skin to skin with parents as early as possible. And one of the projects on our unit at the moment is having, delivery room cuddles. So when a baby is born preterm, they have that early skin to skin with the mother or the father. Ideally, it's with mother, so it helps to support that early breast milk supply. But also sometimes if a mother is unable to have that skin to skin at that time, then it's dads that have the skin to skin. And I think it's really important when we've talked about dads matters that dads have a really important role in this early experiences. And again, it's about helping to show a baby's voice and understanding a baby's voice at that time that opens it up for mothers and fathers. We know that our babies that are at high risk and that are born very early are at high risk of developmental difficulties. And the experiences that they have within these last 3 months are really shaping their brain structure and organization. And the way that we interact with babies very early on can shape their developmental outcomes. So you can see from this picture, this baby, and immediately we see this baby obviously has a huge amount of care needs, but they've had a lot of early experiences on or around their nose, on and around their mouth. They need to be protected. They need to be supported for their oxygen supply. And so we know this baby has had so much care that how can we support making sure that we provide as many positive interactions as possible? And what we know from research over and over again is this early contact with parents and having skin to skin with parents, building that parent-infant relationship is the most important factor for supporting and influencing brain development and neuroprotective outcomes. So having those early delivery room cuddles, having skin to skin as much, having all of our staff on the unit confident in being able to read infants' cues, understand infants' cues, support and model positioning and handling of babies that's considerate and careful and mindful in order to have that early skin to skin. And that even when a baby is very fragile and unwell, actually being in the environment of their parent, being in skin to skin with their mother or father is actually the best place for the baby. And what we often see is a baby is more settled, they sleep better, their heart rate settles, and their breathing rate regulates. So it's really important that we are connecting families. So when we know this, we absolutely have to put this in the center of our care. And also the way that we can use the Brazelton approach. So one of the approaches that when you do your training, you will learn about AMOR. And AMOR is such a fabulous principle that we use in the neonatal unit, because this is something we can use from day one. As soon as a baby is admitted, we can look at what is their autonomic stability, how are they moving, what are we expecting with their movement, how can we support their movement. What states are they showing us? Are they showing us a little bit of alertness? Are we able to support sleep? How deep can we support their sleep? Where do they sleep the best? How do they transition between some of the states they may be developing early? And then how are they responding? How are they showing us their cues? So we can use this as a template for all of us to use, not just from a therapy perspective, but also from a medical perspective, to understand the unique qualities of the baby. And this feeds into our medical plans, how we progress with babies, oxygen support, how we progress with babies feeding when they're ready. And so this model can be really helpful early on before we're able to do some of the practical activities involved in the NBO and the NBAS. And so the AMOR has been developed from the models of practice that we're using on the neonatal unit. And so at the time that AMOR was developed by Dr. Brazelton, this was also at the time that Dr. Hayley was creating the NIDCAP model of practice that is really commonly used in neonatal units. And so this ties perfectly in to the typical practices of care that are happening on neonatal care. And so having that relationship-based approach, observing the infant's cues, and making sure that that's what's driving our medical and our therapy plans with the parents and the infant at the center is really important. And the other theory of practice that's very commonly used across neonatal care as well is our neonatal integrative developmental care model. So it's like our neuroprotective approach. And you can see these are kind of the lotuses, the petals of lotuses all the way around. These are the key principles that we support on a neonatal unit for infants and families. But in the center is our healing environment. And the healing environment is particularly that environment of the parent, supporting the infant's responses to different sensory stimulation in the area, but also being able to support that within the parent's context and following the infant's unique cues, unique responses to the senses around them. And so if we just take a moment to have a look at this baby, we can see that maybe our first response is, my goodness, the amount of support that this baby has to have, the amount of different touch experiences they're having across their body, and the amount of medical care and how fragile this baby is. And if we look at it then from kind of a Brazelton approach and thinking about our AMOR, we can see, first of all, we have a baby that's settled in sleep. We have a baby that's been positioned really beautifully on their side, bringing their hands to the middle of their body to help them to feel regulated and supported and calm. We can see a professional that's very mindful of supporting their regulation and supporting their ability to feel settled and calm. And you see that by the professional having their hands with a little bit of deep touch over the head, a little bit of tucking around the feet. And you can see, even though the high medical care of this baby, you can see that the principles of Brazelton are being used in being mindful of what that baby needs at that time. And so when we think about the Brazelton approach in practice, we have many models of care that we're using in practice on a neonatal unit. And all of our neonatal units will be working towards a lot of accreditations. So one of the accreditations that many of our units will have achieved or will be working towards will be the Bliss Baby Charter. And the Bliss Baby Charter embeds kind of 7 key principles. So it's about ensuring that we're respectful of the social and developmental and emotional needs of the infant and the families that we work with. We need to be using effective decision-making based on the needs of the infant and family. We need to be pulling in our specialist services, training staff, making sure everybody's aware of the individual needs. And we also need to be thinking about what are the next steps for families? How do we support feeding? How do we support towards discharge? So the Brazelton approach in terms of being relationship-based, working with the infant, embedding that within the plan of the infant from a medical and therapy perspective, from a family perspective, is really important, and that complements it beautifully. Many of our units now, including our own unit, are working towards our Baby Friendly Initiative certification. And the 3 key principles of the Baby Friendly Initiative are: number 1, close and loving relationships. And of course, the Brazelton approach is perfectly aligned. And so we can use our MORE and we can use our NBO and our NBAS approaches on our unit to be able to support and reflect, this is how we're supporting early relationship development and bonding. The second principle is about breast milk and breastfeeding. And the key components of breast milk and breastfeeding is about supporting the families. It's about making sure that we're able to read the infant's cues about their early feeding cues. When is the right time to feed? Can we look at their state regulation? How can we use our principles of Brazelton, our MORE, and what we're observing in terms of our observations in terms of when a baby is optimally ready for feeding? And the third principle is parents as partners in care, which again completely embodies the Brazelton approach for the neonatal unit setting and in all areas. And the third pillar, or the third model that's really common, that's used, that's really important within neonatal care, is our family integrated care model. This is what has been published by BAPM in 2021 in terms of just really setting out the guidance that neonatal care needs to use. This guidance specifically names the use of the Brazelton approach using NBO and NBAS on a neonatal unit to help to embed FI care is highly recommended. So we can just see how everything is, supports each other, and we can use our approaches that complement each other and help to move things forwards for infants and families. And I think using these approaches is incredibly essential. But what we need to reflect on as well is, how does this make an impact on the individual babies that we're seeing? How does it make an impact on the families? So from the research that we see that's pulled out, where we focus on relationship-based care, we use neuroprotective strategies, and we're thinking about that organization of the infant and within the family context. The evidence is showing that the babies have shorter ventilation support, so shorter time needing oxygen. They have decreased incidence of intraventricular hemorrhages, so that's a level of brain damage. We have improved daily weight gain, which is a very big factor in neonatal units. We focus on weight a lot. We have improved breastfeeding, which is amazing, and we have decreased lengths of hospital stay. So this is really important for that quality of life of the infant, that they need sometimes less medical support, have less areas, hopefully, of need, and also have better outcomes. From a family point of view, what the research is showing us is that there is a reduction of parent stress and anxiety, and this is associated with better parent-infant relationships. And we know better infant-parent relationships is going to lead to long-term better outcomes for our infants. We see improved breastfeeding rates, we see shorter lengths of stay, and we see long-term health outcomes which are more positive for the entire family. And I think what's really important as well on the neonatal unit is thinking about siblings. And we're very mindful from a family integrated care point of view to be including siblings within that support. And so on our unit, what we're doing now is having kind of individual family sessions where babies are ready for discharge, and including the siblings in some of the observations of the infant as well, so that we're helping to build those early bonds, not just for parents, but also for the siblings at home too. And then in terms of the impact for the organization, so we have improved staff satisfaction, we have improved family satisfaction, and where you have happy families, you tend to have happy staff as well. Again, the shorter length of stay for babies is very, very rewarding to say, look how much we've been able to support together, look at the next steps this baby has been able to take. And then from a practical point of view, a shorter length of stay means it's decreasing hospital costs, there's a greater availability of costs, and so we are being more efficient in managing the money that we have. And what's really essential from neonatal care to home is bridging the gap. So ensuring that when we're completing our observations on the unit, so for my role, I will bridge the gap and see babies after they're discharged as well. And I think that's really important where we have that continuity of care, but continuity of approach. And when we have that, the research is showing us that we have faster access to intervention. We have increased engagement in services, and particularly for families who are more hard to reach, that maybe the research shows those that tend to maybe not follow up on appointments afterwards are engaging more. And so that's really important. What's really important too is that we have this window of opportunity within those first 3 months post-term age, of where the neuronal connections are so sharp and rapid that we can make an impact. So the way that we're able to observe infants, we can make a huge impact on that baby's long-term development. And we're wanting to create these infant-parent relationships in order to support that long-term outcomes. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, please add them in to the chat or our question time a bit later.
Thank you so much, Elaine. It's wonderful to hear of the work of your department in NICU. And I'm sure everybody will be amazed to see that progress, that journey that you have accompanied the families on. And it's wonderful to know how the NBO fits into the ways that you work with families, and how it's relationship based, and how that relationship being relationship based actually has all those positive outcomes, both for families in terms of future development, in terms of economic costs, which is also important, but just how the Brazelton approach fits in with other approaches such as BLISS, the UNICEF, and how I guess we're all thinking now about the families, both mothers, fathers, siblings. I'm so happy to hear you speak of the siblings, who are also an important part in all that we do in the Brazelton approach. So thank you very much for sharing all that with us. Hello and welcome back to the second part of our webinar today. And I have great pleasure in inviting Salena Holmes, the service manager, and Alex Westcott, the principal psychologist, and Hayley Shelton, perinatal nursery nurse, to tell us more about, they're representing Essex Perinatal Mental Health Service. And I know they've done an enormous amount of work in embedding the NBO into their service in Essex. And we look forward very much to hearing from you and to hearing how that has worked for you. So thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experience with us. Thank you.
Hello, so we'll start with introductions. My name's Salena Holmes. I'm the Essex Service Manager for the north side of the Essex-wide perinatal service. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex Westcott. I am a counselling psychologist and I'm the principal psychologist for the north half of Perinatal Community Service.
Good morning, I'm Hayley Shelton. I am a nursery nurse for the Perinatal Mental Health Service, predominantly covering the northwest area.
Okay, so we just thought we'll start with the scene setting. So EPERT stands for Essex Partnership University Trust, and the Perinatal Mental Health Team, we are a pan-Essex specialist service. We care for women and birthing women in the perinatal period, which includes time from conception through to 1 year, and those already under the service, we can extend that time up to 2 years after the birth of the baby. And those women are at risk of experiencing serious mental illness. The team started as a pan-Essex in 2017, and this was following the NHS implementation and funding to extend services and to ensure that all women have access to perinatal service. So we were successful with the Wave 1 money, and after a bid that was put in. At the time, we only had 2 hubs across Essex. So we had a hub down in the south and a hub in the north. And we had just a few staff. So we had 5 perinatal practitioners, a clinical lead, team manager, psychologist, and we also had a perinatal consultant on each side of the team. And our practitioners came from a background of registered mental health nurses, OTs, or social work qualifications. And at that time, we were commissioned to see 3% of the Essex birth rate. So we take our figures from the ONS 2016. And so in Essex, we have a birth rate of 23,000 births a year. And then in September 2019, there was an additional Essex-wide service transformation. So we were then commissioned to see on a trajectory up to 10% of the Essex birth rate. So to do that, we had to obviously rethink the model across Essex, in which that we implemented 5 hubs across Essex. And also our workforce was expanded in that we now in each hub have a perinatal consultant. We have 6 perinatal practitioners. We have a clinical lead. We have a psychologist. We have 2 psychological therapists. We have nursery nurse and support workers. And then across the north and the south, we have specific roles in social work and OTs. And with the new service model, obviously, we were on a trajectory to increase the access rate to up to 10%, as I said previously. So the rationale for obviously implementing it, with the NBO had been used by previous staff in roles. So within our service, we have registered mental health nurses who are also dual qualified as health visitors. And so the use of the NBO had been obviously previously used in them roles and the benefit of it. So the implementation, when we had the new nursery nurse roles in the perinatal mental health service, we had to be thinking about the specific parent-infant work that they would be doing. And so there was an importance of encouraging at a really early opportunity baby Q observation in order, obviously, to support the development of maternal sensitivity and that lovely maternal reflective functioning, in line also with the perinatal focus of the perinatal frame of mind. And when we talk about the perinatal frame of mind, we think about the maternal mental health, we think about the infant mental health, and we also think about the mother-infant dyad. So the implementation of the NBO as we were expanding the roles within the service, and obviously the amount of women that we were seeing in the service and the increase of those women during their perinatal journey, we were seeing much more women around the birth around the birthing time for that woman.
The other thing I was just going to say as well that we haven't put on the slide, I was just thinking while you were talking, was about kind of, because the team, we're so lucky to have so many different disciplines in the service, and what it means is that we end up having kind of a bit of it doesn't quite work like this in practice, but a bit of a stepped care model where lots of different disciplines are kind of trained in similar interventions, but would see maybe different cohorts of women. And just thinking about where the kind of nursery nurse parent infant office sat, and like where the kind of NBO sat in terms of kind of more of a universal offer. And we'll talk a little bit about that coming up in how we developed kind of the NBO offer as we went through, but just thinking about how the NBO was such a good fit for the nursery nursing offer kind of at that level of intervention.
So the rationale and obviously planning for a baby. The team, we routinely contact people weekly for the first 4 to 6 weeks during the postnatal period, and we call it our planned red zone. So every week they have, the mum has a contact either face-to-face or by video, and we review how the mum mental health is progressing and how the bonding and the relationship is coming on with the baby. And then around about and we thought that this would be a good opportunity to embed, obviously, the parent-infant intervention of the NBO at this point. It also gave us an opportunity to have early screening. So on the next slide, I explain how that we implemented that screening to give us a bit of a deeper understanding of the parent-infant need at that time. So it was agreed that all the nursery nurses would be trained in the EMBO as part of the Essex transformation, and wider staff development considerations were given to that, as Alex said. So we have what we call perinatal therapies oversight group, and within that group we have different work streams. So one of the work streams is the parent-infant work stream, and we set the agenda to obviously incorporate the NBO project, and that was in March 2021. The service evaluation proposal was drafted, and we also sent this to our EPUT research and development team for approval. At that time, it was decided that we would do the Caratane, which is a parenting confidence questionnaire, and we would offer to the mother to complete the questionnaire between the 3 to 6 weeks post birth, and then we would do a follow-up questionnaire, would be completed on the phone 4 to 6 weeks later after the NBO. So the Caratane is a screening tool, and it can be used to gauge the parenting confidence. It's a subjective tool, but it's also a predictor of potential concerns relating to, maternal emotional well-being, and also her and the father's role into the transition of parenting. The screening tool can be used at up to 12 weeks. So initially, the service offered the NBO to every family who delivered whilst they were under the team. So during their planned red zone, the practitioner or, the support worker or the practitioner, regardless of their Caratane score, would be offered an NBO, because we wanted to get an overall view of the scores that we were getting and whether there was any sort of change in the Caratane use. So up in the top right hand corner is just a bit of an overview of the scoring from the Caratane. So anything 40 above is a non-clinical range, and anything 36-39 is a mild clinical range, and moderate is 31 to 35. However, as you can imagine, as we started expanding the service and seeing more mums, and 10% of 22,000, that's 2,300 mums that would come through the service and have an assessment with the team, it was felt that we needed to really target the NBO offer. So the Caratane scores of under 39 would trigger a referral to the nursery nurses to have a discussion with the mum about the NBO offer to the family, and that would be to mum and to dad. And then we would, as I said previously, the Caratane would be repeated 4 to 6 weeks after the NBO, and we then kept a score. We would kept a running overview of the two scores for the mum. We would make the health visitor aware of the families that were scoring low on the Caratane, because there may have been any additional support that could be given. And this was all part of the development of the parent-infant offer, as Alex said about the stepped model, because we've expanded the parent-infant offer in various professionals across the team as well. Alex?
I was just going to add, I'm just thinking about like some of the, if we think about like the challenges of implementing the NBO, and I think I'm wondering about this as kind of like a psychological challenge for the service, because the NBO and the families' experiences, and Hayley will talk a little bit to some of the feedback we've had from the families later, but the families' experiences of the NBO is always, really significantly positive. And I think in perinatal services, we get such a cross section of, kind of obviously women and families who are really struggling with bonding difficulties, but also families where there are mental health difficulties antenatally, but, no concerns about the relationship at all. And so there are kind of, you see an opportunity to intervene in a way, even where there are no relational difficulties, where you can really see just how the NBO supports that confidence and just that kind of embedding in that maternal identity and the development of that, that kind of matrescence that we talk about, that development of the maternal identity in those first few weeks when nobody really knows what they're doing. And I think to kind of pull that back from families where we weren't seeing a difficulty was really challenging for us. We really wanted to keep it as a universal offer, but obviously we're really constrained by resource. But just like a kind of a note that we found it was universally helpful, and it was just having to target it, just in terms of our resource.
So within the perinatal service, we have what we call the CCQI perinatal standards, and that's been developed by the Royal College of Psychiatry. So they're standards to which that our service works alongside, and you have peer reviews, and then you get accreditation as to ensure that you're implementing all the standards. So the CCQI standards, they talk about, and we're on the 6th edition now, and they talk about the importance of the parent-infant relationship assessment, the importance of training in infant mental health and development, and the importance of parent-infant relational screening and intervention where indicated. And also the importance of understanding and promoting the parent-infant interaction and relationship throughout the care from, conception right the way through their journey, their perinatal journey under the service.
So these standards make it really easy for us, don't they, to kind of like go back to commissioners or go back to in our training meetings and in our kind of service development meetings to really argue for interventions like the EMBO, because it's such an integral part of the work that we're supposed to be doing.
And obviously we have the Healthy Child Programme. It's a major emphasis is on supporting parents through the perinatal transitional period, stressing the importance of positive parenting and attachment. And we've got the NICE 2012 guidelines and also 1001 critical days. So some of the training in the team was initially funded by NHS England perinatal workforce training funds that we had, and then the additional training because obviously over the years we have had some staff that have left, and then we've had new staff that have come into the team, so we funded in-house training for the Essex perinatal service. And the importance of the buy-in and the support from commissioners, as what Alex said, and obviously bringing it to the service development team and sharing the knowledge and the research that we're seeing what's being offered. And we commissioned a small film within the perinatal mental health service, and we've included a clip from the NBO as below, and Alex is going to use her skills to bring up this short video.
I don't know about skills. What I was thinking we might do is, should we carry on and get to the end rather than me fiddling about now, and then I'll show you the clip at the end. Just mindful of the time too.
Lovely. So these were figures on the amount of EMBOs that were offered across, and this is from January to December in 2023. So we had 161 completed EMBOs and 2 declined EMBOs.
Sorry, I have a donut of doom, but hopefully it's changing slides now. It just keeps trying to take us to the PowerPoint, to the link. Let me stop and start again. Here we go.
Thanks, Alex.
No worries. The joys of there we are.
So Hayley, do you want to give the outcomes for the staff and the families?
So here on this slide, we've got a few pieces of feedback that we've had from the lovely families that we've worked with and delivered EMBOs to. I'll read these out. I also have some extras that we've obtained from colleagues as well. So it enabled me to see how clever she was. As a first-time mum, it also showed me that my baby's doing everything that she should be doing, and it has really reassured me. It was reassuring to see you observe my ability to pick up on my son's cues and the bond I had. It really helped with my anxiety. It helped me to look out for things, his cues, which has made me worry less about his development. I found it a lovely opportunity to get to understand my baby's specific ways of communicating. It was interesting to learn how she communicates and to see how. I hadn't noticed how I was picking up on that already. And I think just from the 5 comments on this slide, I think the overall theme and how parents feel after we've delivered this is reassured that they understand their baby. And it really links into that Caratane questionnaire where we're looking at the parent's confidence, and usually where their confidence falters. And some of the questions, one of them is, I feel like I'm doing a good job as a mother. And we very rarely get mum say, yes, I'm doing an amazing job all of the time. We get, maybe some of the time, not very often. And there's questions in there saying, do I understand my baby? And we ask that before we do the newborn development or newborn behaviour observations. And they'll often say, no, I can't read my baby's cues. I'm not very confident at it. I don't think I understand my baby. But after you complete this appointment with them and you're talking through everything you're seeing, everything baby is communicating with you, and they're sharing their opinions on it as well, their confidence is really lifted and boosted. Now, a couple more feedbacks I have that aren't on the slide. I have a response from a father, because these are all from mothers. Because when we deliver it, usually if dads are working, they tend to have gone back to work by this point. So can often be a singular moment and just with mum, which is powerful, but it is even more powerful when dad's there too. So a dad response was, it was so interesting. You just think they're a little baby who doesn't do much until you see all the things they actually do. The partner of that dad said it was absolutely amazing. It showed me things I would never have realised. I think every parent who has a baby should have one. And the last one is, I wish I'd had it with my first. It could potentially help reduce postpartum depression in some parents, for it provides knowledge, reassurance, and encourages bonding with baby too. So there is some of the lovely feedback that we've had. And as a nursery nurse that gets to deliver these as part of her job role, I love it. There's never an appointment you come out of and think somebody hasn't learned something. All of our parents under our service, they learn something about their baby and they share that with you, and the pride that they have. And then its reward comes further when you repeat that Caratane questionnaire a few weeks afterwards and you see that their scores and their confidence have gone up. So for us, it really is a crucial tool, and it really does pave the way for all of those interventions that follow.
I know it's conscious of time. I've got an alarm beeping in the background. I know we must end, so we'll include the link for the video.
Sorry, I can't hear you at the moment. I don't know whether other people can.
I think what Alex was saying was her she's in a building and the alarm's going off.
Oh, I see. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentations. Did you say that you'll leave the clip for the, to see the video so people can see that themselves? Yes, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Essex, for sharing your experience with us. And it's just amazing to see how you've embedded the NBO into your service, and just how many people have benefited from your work. And as is it Hayley? Yes.
Yeah.
Just the joy, not only for the families, but also for the practitioners, in knowing that you've had that amazing input into your service. So obviously we recommend the NBO to all services, and that it should be a universal service. And as the parent said, just that it would be wonderful if every single parent who gave birth could have an NBO. And that's our vision at the Brazelton Centre UK. So thank you so much for your being with us today and sharing your experience. Thank you. So we now move on to Camden's experience of embedding the NBO into their service, and we have Lorraine Mireku and Helen Hibbard and Maria Gomez, who are going to share with us how they've embedded this NBO into their health visiting service and into their family hubs. So thank you to those who are going to present today, this session. Thank you.
Morning. Let's see.
Good morning, Lorraine.
Let's see if I can share my screen. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Morning, everyone. Hope that you guys have had a nice morning. So my name is Lorraine. I'm one of the NBO champions in Camden. So today I'm just going to be talking about the implementation of the NBO within the Camden Health Visiting Service. I was supposed to do this presentation with my colleague Nina, but unfortunately she's unwell, so I'll be flying solo today. So the NBO journey in Camden started back in 2021 when the first cohort completed their NBO training. And then about a year later, the second cohort completed their training. And following each training, we spent about 3 months doing the accreditation. To be honest, most of the health visitors finished their accreditation before the 3-month period. But I'll say as a whole, it took 3 months. And for the remainder of 2022, I would say the focus for us health visitors was kind of just raising the profile of the NBO within the health visiting service and within the early integrated service. So we did have an away day where Nina and I spoke about why we decided to become NBO champions. And then we've had focus groups as well, just getting a view from our health visiting colleagues about how they've been able to embed the NBO into their visits. But I would say for the last year, the focus has mainly been about how to embed it into the different contacts that we offer within the Camden Health Visiting Service, whether it be our antenatal contacts, new births, postnatal contacts, or our Best Start for Baby, which I'll talk to you guys about in a few moments. But we have introduced an NBO Padlet that all health visitors are able to access, where we keep up-to-date information from the Brazelton and just information about the different components from the NBO as well. So through our antenatal contacts, which we deliver via our antenatal class, bump to baby, or during our targeted antenatals, we've actually been able to incorporate some of the elements of the NBO, where we're promoting the brain development, skin to skin, bonding and attachment, and just soothing. And what we've noticed from having the NBO in those contacts is that it has reduced parental anxiety. Parents feel more confident in the transition to parenthood. And with our bump to baby sessions as well, we do have posters from the Brazelton plastered all over where suggestions are given on how to bond with their unborn baby. So during our new birth visits that we usually complete between 10 to 14 days in Camden, one of the things that our lovely admin team will do is send the parents this leaflet, Best Start for Baby and You, which tells you a little bit about the new birth visit, but also about the NBO. And some of the feedbacks that we've received from health visitors and from parents is that it's helped build a better relationship between health visitors and parents. And one of the things that us health visitors have noticed that we're kind of moving away from good baby, bad baby, my baby doesn't really do anything other than feed and sleep. But the main thing that we've taken from it is that fathers are more involved. Personally, if I see a dad during a new birth visit, I get them to do the NBO with me. And It's made the contact more interactive, and it's suitable for all families, regardless of the background. We get a positive response, whether it's a first-time parent or a sixth-time parent. I did one a few months ago where the concerns that the dad had was housing, and it was their sixth baby, and I ended up doing an embo, and I could just see the big smile on the dad's face because he didn't realize all the things his baby could do. So amazing tool for all families. And we're focusing more on the voice of the baby and just understanding the baby's unique personality. But at the same time, the health promotion stuff that we do usually get delivered during a new birth visit, we're able to use embo in discussing safe sleeping, coping with crying, soothing, and feeding. But the main thing is that we're supporting the overall development of the baby. And although the embo isn't a diagnostic or an assessment tool, we have been able to detect things early, like torticollis, which has enabled us to refer a baby to a physiotherapist. If there are concerns about rooting or sucking, we might be able to support the family, but if not, we'll be able to signpost them or refer them to our Camden feeding team. So as you can see here, this is the data for the embo completion during our new birth visits in 2023. So we managed to complete over 1,400. The ones that weren't done, it was mostly because we did have new starters or health visiting students that haven't yet been trained in delivering the embo, which I'll talk about in a few moments. So during our postnatal contacts, which we complete between 6 to 8 weeks, and we're able to support parents in continuing the bond with their baby. And some areas that we may have found challenging, well, the baby may have found challenging during the initial embo, we're able to review it again during the postnatal contact. And we're looking more at the relationship between the parents and the baby. But we're giving advice to parents about the next step of their baby's development as well. And again, we're able to refer if additional support is required. We do have a service that's called Best Start for Baby, which is 3 additional contacts that we offer to parents at 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. And during that 3-month contact, we do deliver the embo as well. Which gives us a great opportunity to promote the baby bonding classes that we have in Camden, which Helen will talk to you guys about later, and other play groups. But again, it is another opportunity for us to deliver another embo. So for new starters, so whether it be new health visitors or health visiting students that are with us for a year, prior to their 2-day training, they have an opportunity to shadow a health visitor during a new birth where an embo will be completed. And then they're given the Camden embo contact guide policy, which we created last year. And it is information about the purpose of the embo, and it goes through each component in great detail and how it relates to child development and the Healthy Child Program. If the starter felt that a family would benefit from an embo, then obviously they would let myself and Nina know, and then we would offer it during the postnatal contact. But prior to the 2-day training, Nina and I will meet with the new staff or student, discuss what the expectation is of the training, and then during the accreditation period, we will support them, whether it be home visits or just answering any questions that they may have. But we also do encourage all our staff to access the Brazelton supervision on a regular basis. So based on the previous slides, you can kind of see how we've been able to incorporate the embo into the Healthy Child Program from the antenatal period until the 4-month contact. We have completed a few audits as well. So some of the things that we're looking at are how many embos were completed during the new birth visit. who was present during those contacts, whether it be the parents, grandmother, sibling, and if it wasn't completed, why wasn't it completed, which components were completed, and if a referral was needed, to which services. And last year we did have a peer observation, and we did have one this year as well, where health visitors will buddy up and observe each other deliver the EMBO. And then, as you can see on your on the slide, you can see some of the things that we're looking at during the peer observation. And some of the things that we may identify the health visitors might be struggling with in terms of the component. We're able to offer practical sessions where we'll go through that. And it's a great opportunity for staff to share the EMBO story, some of the successes, some of the challenges that they've experienced. But overall, it's an opportunity for health visitors to reflect and learn from each other. We had one health visitor who said that she wasn't sure about how to deliver the EMBO during a new birth visit. And I had another colleague who said, whenever you see an opportunity, just do it. And she mentioned that she saw the mom changing the baby's nappy on the floor, obviously with the nappy, with the changing mat, and the health visitor literally just went on the floor and started doing the EMBO before she even introduced herself. And she just said that it felt so natural. So like I said, it's an opportunity to learn from each other, and support staff in some of the challenges that they might be facing. Some of the feedback that we've received from parents, the first one is, mom looked low in mood until I showed how her baby could play and respond to their faces, voice, and toys and do tummy time. Mom got support with her mental health from the GP, and on checking in with her at the postnatal contact, Mom was very glad to have had this opportunity to learn about what her child could do, and we spent some time talking about what will come next for him with his development, like sitting up and eating food. And another one is, thank you for visiting us today and taking your time listening and helping us. This is the first time I've looked at my son as a normal baby and not a sick baby. So this baby had cardiac problems and spent quite a long time in the hospital, and the dad was very anxious. But the overall feedback that we tend to get from parents is, wow, I didn't know my baby could do all of these things. And can't even see the last one. And I understand my baby more. And these are some of the feedbacks from colleagues. It is a lot of text, so I'll just read one of them. So I wanted to thank you both for the work you're doing with the EMBO champion role. I believe the EMBO training and the impact on HV practice is fantastic, but like with any new skill / approach, it needs work and good leadership to keep it embedded in practice. The session you did this morning was great. I've learned new / additional languages, ways of using from that video, and you both did a good job with facilitating the session. The strengths, challenges, open discussions, very good, shared practice, but also gives a platform to where the challenges may be, allowing openness to help practitioners overcome rather than avoidance. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. I guess we go on to Maria and Helen now. Is that right?
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this leads in really nicely from Lorraine's presentation. And as you heard, what we're doing in Camden, and we are an integrated team. We are now family hubs in Camden, and we work really closely with all different professionals in the children's centres, and we work really closely with our colleagues, the health visiting team. So Maria and I would like to give you a bit of an insight into our baby bonding drop-in. And the drop-in is for parent carers aged 0 to 6 months. We are the preparation for parenthood team. We have lots of different names. We also deliver the antenatal bump to baby group. let's see if I can check. There we go. So building early positive relationships is something that is really key within the children's centres, the family hubs. And the family hubs in Camden are really striving to offer that seamless support to families. We have our antenatal bump to baby, so we are from conception and we are up to 19 to 25 years. So we originally started, the team that I work within, we are all family workers. We originally started our antenatal bump to baby group in 2016. We deliver this, co-facilitate this with our health visiting colleagues and with midwives. And so we really try and encourage parents to think about what their baby is telling them, thinking about what they're saying in the womb, and then we think about what they're telling them once they're born in their own unique language. And as Lorraine was saying, it's the NBO approach and the NBO language has really now been embedded into that antenatal programme. So as Lorraine has said, in the initial visit and in as many opportunities as they can, the parents have that NBO observation, which fits in really nicely with what we are doing in baby bonding. So in the baby bonding drop-in, the facilitators continue this journey by supporting parents to get to know their baby. And we really think about it in these key ways. How is their baby responding to sounds, faces and objects? What's their baby's physical activity and reflexes saying to the parent? And how is the baby able to manage their sleep and their crying? Thinking about the baby's sounds, signals and cues, and obviously comforting baby. And we call this the NBO approach. Okay. So a little bit about our journey into how we developed our postnatal group. So with the antenatal group, we used to hold socials twice a year, so we could get to see the babies. We'd seen all the parents antenatally, and we really wanted to sort of continue sharing that journey and supporting parents to use the children's centre. However, the data was showing us that parents with babies under the age of 6 months really weren't attending the centre. They might come in for to visit the Camden baby feeding team, but they weren't really using any of the other group activities. So because we had this great set of parents that we were already in touch with, in 2020, we held a consultation with mothers and fathers. We've always had a high group of fathers attending our antenatal groups, and we are always keen to hear their voice. And we really asked them, what kind of, why don't you attend the children's centres? What is it that you would like to see? And with their thoughts, and with their ideas, we started to shape our postnatal group. And parents were telling us that when they had a baby under 6 months, and it was quite daunting coming into a group where there was much more mobile babies, older babies, that they didn't feel they were able to put babies down on the floor. They felt they still had to hold them quite tightly. So we started to develop our postnatal group. And we came up with a rolling 6-week rolling topics where we could ask parents to contribute and to share what they were doing. And this really also supported other parents. Obviously lots of topics were about sleep and feeding, but this gave other parents that support. This was online because we had just hit that COVID period, so we weren't able to do anything face to face. And so in the time of that sort of period of doing online postnatal groups and still not being face to face, we were given the opportunity to join the first cohort of health visitors and to do the NBO training. The staff went on to get their accreditation, and this really started to shape what our postnatal sessions were about. We could really link the topics that we were offering, and Maria will tell you a bit more about that in a moment, the topics we were offering and how we could really use that the NBO observations and the language and thinking about the voice of the child, how that really could shape the group that we were developing. So Thursday, the 2nd of September was a great day. We held our first drop-in and one parent turned up. I have to say that we have now gone on we run 3 drop-ins across Camden. We have an approximate age, 18 to 25 parents attending each week. It can be quite noisy. There's lots and lots going on. But we do stick at 0 to 6 months. We have a graduation now that we have to move parents on. We celebrate those first 6 months along with the parents, and then we gently move them on onto other groups. Although we now know that they are attending other drop-in services, and the language that we share with the parents and language that we use is now being taken on by other services, and we are really keen for it to be a continuing and a joint language, NBO language, across Camden services. We don't turn anyone away. So sometimes we can have very high numbers in the drop-in, but we really think that if a parent has made the effort with a very young baby to get out the door, and this might be their first time attending any drop-in or any kind of group activity, we would not want them to say, sorry, we're full, you've got to come back next week, because we really think that actually that might be, they might not come. So we have, like I say, it's a drop-in, so parents come from any time from the start to the finish. Our preparation for parenthood team have a very high level of training. They deliver all the antenatal programs, and we really now seek out training that really, continues to embed the NBO approach. So we have done Babies in Our Mind, the stuff to doing VIG training. And so we really think about training that will just continue that journey. So just a little bit about, so originally, obviously we are part of Best Start for Baby and You, as Lorraine was saying, and we kind of just a little picture there, you probably can't see too much of where we fit into the Camden's journey of pregnancy to age 5. But really, our original outcomes and our aims is really to support parents in that postnatal period up to 6 months, and then to link them. I am very keen on that seamless journey. You come in antenatally and you continue a journey through the children's centre services and voluntary organisations, and we all have that same approach. We are really keen to reduce social isolation in Camden. We know that parents have told us that postnatal period can be very, very isolating for parents if you don't have other family members around you, and Camden and London in itself, there's families, a lot of families are just on their own with a very, very small network. So come into a group and meet other parents. Just encouraging parents to think about their role as a parent, about the child's development, and to increase their families, increase awareness of their family's health. We have lots of guest speakers that come in. We have talk, people come in and talk about reusable nappies, immunisation, feeding. We really encourage other people to come in. And also it gives us a chance to model to other professionals the NBO language, that voice of the child, the uniqueness of the child. We really strive to support disadvantaged families in Camden. That we have, being a inner city in London, there is lots of, the social economic, the differences in Camden is quite stark. So we really try and improve short and long-term outcome goals. We promote infant development and we would help protect against emotional ill health. And we really hope that the parents are able to gain an understanding of what to expect in those early postnatal weeks, and just to increase that preparation that demands of parenthood, because we know it can be a tough journey. Okay, so I'll hand over to Maria because really I think, knowing about what we do in the group is probably the best part. So I'll hand over to Maria.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm one of the facilitators of baby bonding. Baby bonding is a drop-in, so moms, dads, carers are welcome to attend at any time during the group. The sessions are 2 hours. As Helen said, the age of the babies varies. We have parents who bring young babies as young as 2 weeks old, and they stay with us in their journey until babies around 6 months. Although the data tell us that by the age of 2 months, the parents and babies are more ready to attend regularly to the sessions. So when they come to baby bonding, the parents have the opportunity to settle in the room while the group starts forming. And once the group is formed, we have a kind of 6 weeks rolling basis program with different topics. So we have brain development and bonding, play and communication, coping with crying, feeding, sleeping. And we do peer support discussions around these topics. The parents are encouraged to share their parenting challenges and achievements. Parents recognize in these discussions about the uniqueness of their babies. And they offer each other advice and support. And through sharing these experiences and feelings, supportive networks evolve both within and beyond the groups. And it's very nice to see these parents attending to other groups together. So focus on how parents and carers communicate and understand their baby's behavior is at the heart of the discussions and play activities. So after the topic group discussions, we introduce playing time with babies. So the physical environment is set up so parents sit on the floor with babies placing in front of them where possible. This kind of facilitates tummy time for babies as well as face-to-face interactions between the parents, carers, and babies. We used to do a baby massage session after the kind of rolling 6 topic sessions, but currently we are using gentle movements and baby massage strokes in every session as a way to initiate the playing time. So this kind of is a way to set the tone for lots of eye contacts and serve and return conversations. And kind of tuning with the babies through the activities we do, So parents are encouraged to share in what behavioral state their babies are and the state organization, so they assess if the baby is ready to join in the group activity, face-to-face interaction, maybe they need a break of stimulation, or other physical and emotional needs that needs to be met. So through the baby massage activities and sensorial activities such as peekaboo, babies lying on the foil blanket, babies going under a colorful parachute, basically the parents through looking at their baby's behaviors and responses, about the voice of the baby, that through those behaviors and language, they are telling us about their likes and dislikes. So we encourage parents, for example, after the activity to kind of say something about what they think the baby will say, and something like, "Wow, Mom, I really enjoy the colors and the breeze on my face when we play the parachute." Or "Mom, this was an oversensorial stimulation for me. I cannot cope with this." So parents kind of start understanding better the feelings of the babies. We kind of encouraged to follow their baby's leads and use a kind of watch, wait, and wonder approach. So during activities like, for example, in the action nursery zones where actions come like tickling or lifting, we kind of encourage parents to wait for their baby's responses. And this gives the babies an opportunity to learn and anticipate the actions, and for the parents to observe their baby's responsivity to their environment, like faces, voices, sounds, and other sensorial activities such as touching. So we have fun, we had good times, we go through crying as part of the ways that babies develop, but through also many cues that the babies share with us. And this journey kind of finished at 6 months when the babies become more mobile. So what we do is encourage them to attend other groups in the children's centers that help to support them with the development. We celebrate the graduation with certificates, pictures with certificates, hats of babies, cakes, nice fruit. And this is a kind of very good way to finish their time with us. We collect feedback from the parents. These are the kind of outcomes and benefits that we see. So 92%
Maria,
Yes.
could I just interrupt a moment because we're actually running a tiny bit late. I don't know how much more have you to share?
2 slides.
2 slides, okay. I guess people could read what is on the slides.
All right.
Then you can just bring it to a close, and then we have time for some questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It would be good just to share some of the feedback. So we send out when the babies leave at 6 months, we send them a feedback form. They're always very happy to give their feedback. And some of the lovely things that parents say is that they feel less alone, that they've built up a network, that they've learned how to read their baby's cues and bonding with their baby. And so we know it just gives us that indication or that kind of, that we know that we are getting this right, and that actually these babies really have got that best start to life. So thank you. Thank you, Maria, as well.
Yes, no, thank you to all of you from Camden. It's so impressive as to how you've managed to embed the EMBO and the EMBO language into all that you do. I can't tell you how impressed I am that you can go from antenatal to 6 months and use the same language throughout. It's most impressive, and to have that offered universally is more than we could hope for at the Brazelton Centre. And obviously you're achieving the results that you yourselves have set, your aims, and so many parents and babies are benefiting. And I like the fact that you start antenatally, which is really helpful. And also that I think Lorraine was talking about EMBO champions, which also helps, I think, you're obviously speaking with the same voice, and perhaps that's the baby's voice. But thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. So now I'll move on. Perhaps all the panelists can open their videos so that we can see everybody. And I think, Inga, you're going to chair the question and answer session.
Yes, thank you so much, Susan, and thank you so much to everyone, all the presenters. It's just been amazing to hear about all the amazing work that you do and how you're using the EMBO. That's, of course, really amazing to hear. So we have quite a few questions, so I am just hopeful that we can get through as many of them as possible. And thank you to all of you who have been answering some of them as we go along. So we have time to sort of focus on a few here, before we round up today. So there is a question how you could implement as part of early intervention in connection with neonatal follow-up. And I think you kind of talked about that, Elaine, a little bit, but I wonder if you could answer that one as well.
Yeah, so the EMBO actually fit, and the NBAS fit beautifully into neonatal follow-up. So typically, best practice and best evidence-based practice would be that a baby would have an EMBO or an NBAS before they go home. So we can administer that from 37 weeks gestation. And actually, it's a really lovely way of being able to really reinforce what the strengths of the baby are, also think about what their challenges may be, and then just prepare parents for thinking, what are the next steps for my baby? What does it look like at home? And doing that in collaboration with the parents is really lovely. And then as they do come into the official neonatal follow-up, they are usually picked up at term age. So I often offer a session then for them to come back into clinic. Usually we say term age, but I usually see them under 6 weeks to again come back and just have an observation. And I usually use an NBO in that session. And then their next appointment would be at 3 months. And again, I would use the NBO or the NBAS at 3 months to structure the session. So I would use the language, the Brazelton-based language. I will use my observations through the NBO and the NBAS, which actually the observations within that tie in with our developmental assessments, and we typically use the Bailey. So some of the activities are the exact same. So I usually lead it through an NBO or an NBAS instead, and then I can add on any other videos and observations that I want to take, like the general movements assessment, and it usually ties together really nicely, but it's the Brazelton approach that kind of frames the follow-up. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Elaine. There is another question. I would like to know more about how the approach fits in with the cultural needs of families from minority ethnic groups. I'm sure you can probably all answer that. I don't know, Anulika, Kieran, Camden, I guess everybody.
Hi, Helen from Camden. Inga, so can I offer? So we have found that in the drop-in, we are really keen to develop their use of baby massage, and we have found that when we talk about massage with baby, this is often a really it's something that's really spread culturally. So a lot of our mums and fathers from different backgrounds. Often massage is the one thing that they have done with, culturally through their families. And so this just then places baby in the right place. And then you can just start to lead in. So we have used with culturally with parents that maybe the NBO is new to, that baby massage is a really great place to start getting baby in the, in the right, front of the parent and in that right place. So that's how we lead into our conversations and challenge it in that, or I'll just deal with it in that way.
Okay, that's great to hear, Helen. Thank you. Anybody else in any different service?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the newborn behavioral observation is very visual, and a lot of families, not regarding where they come from, will want you to be interested in their baby. They want you to show interest. And it doesn't matter whether there is a language barrier. What I've seen is that the parents are seeing because the baby is showing. So even when English is a second language, or where there's an interpreter there, I don't really need the interpreter to say anything. I just want all of us to let's just be in that moment and just have the space to observe what the baby is telling us and showing us. So for every culture, Manchester is a very highly diverse population. It works across every culture because it's not about paperwork, it's not about lots of talking, it's about observing the baby together.
That's great. Thank you so much, Anulika, for that.
I'd like to tell you about what we do, if that's okay.
Please, Kieran, yes.
So we face the challenge of engaging men into a service that does feel more mum focused. So we don't tend to use the same language. We use much more scientific language, much more direct. When we speak to dads, we don't ask them to come to us. So we don't set up groups that dads can attend. We go to the dads in antenatal clinics, NICU wards, mother and baby units, rainbow clinics. We speak to the dads there. We use all the language within the NBO when we have those conversations initially. When we're encouraging them to come to our new dad workshop, which is based on a lot of the NBO activities. And then when we're offering EMBOs to dads in referral, what we're talking about is we can really help you to get to know your baby, help them to get to know you, and show you some really amazing things that your baby can do. And the very simple, direct language really helps us with engaging those dads. When we use the language that they already hear around things like baby massage, baby and toddler group, drop-in sessions, they assume that all of those are for mums, because that's kind of how they've experienced it up to then. So we try and make it more engaging for them while the content is exactly the same. And we're very clear with professionals, referrers, and mums that what we're doing is what they can access as well. It's not different, even though we reach dads in a different way through a different language and a different image and brand.
That's great. And thank you for sharing that, Kieran, because that is one thing that we do need to be mindful of about. It's about being inclusive for all parents and all babies. So again, it's just wonderful to be able to hear from all of you and kind of learn about how everybody makes sure that they at least think about how to do that. Thank you. We have another question about how this could work in inpatient settings, in particular in mother and baby units. I wonder, Susan, if you would be able to share your experience, and then maybe we can hear from Essex Perinatal Mental Health Service as well. Oh, you're on mute, Susan.
Yes, I used to work before I retired on the mother and baby unit at the Bethlem Hospital, part of the SLAM, South London. Gosh, it's so long since I worked for them. South London and Maudsley Trust. And working on the MBU, I found that using the NBO, or in fact the NBAS, because I use that as well, was really important in helping the mothers who were severely unwell and might have been suffering from deep depressions, bipolar disorder, mothers with schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia. But by demonstrating the NBO or doing the NBO with them, or the NBAS, it showed them that just what their babies were capable of and what their communication strategies were, in terms of that they really needed their mothers and their fathers, and were really wanting to communicate with them. And that somehow took away the emphasis on their own illness, that there was someone out there that needed them. And that always struck me as, and even mothers would comment that when you showed me what the baby was capable of, could do, and how he or she could communicate with me, that was when I began to feel better. And obviously most of the women would have been on medication and have very different inputs of therapies, but just knowing that their baby was there, dependent on them, meant that mothers who were even afraid to touch their babies actually began to be able to get to know them and understand them. So even with really, really unwell women, it's such an important part of their recovery.
Thank you. I don't know, Salena, Alex, Hayley, whether you have got anything?
Yeah, I'd just like to obviously second what Suzanne said. It's, you know, we've had mums that haven't necessarily been in MBU, but they've been in acute wards because they've been too unwell to go into the MBU. So actually doing that in reach work, which Hayley's done, worked really well with a mum regarding that, and ensuring that we keep that bond up despite the mum's inability to be able to be with her baby at that time due to her own emotional and mental health difficulties. But I think also it's really important to keep the communication open between the community team as well as the mother and baby units. So we may have done the Caratane and noted that she needed to have be offered an EMBO, but sorry, but at that time she needed to be taken into hospital to an NBU. So having that communication, and as we know, we go into units, across the country. We try and keep them local as can be, but if the beds aren't available, then it's just about communication with the units. Alex?
Just an echo, I think, just like you say, that importance of the kind of joined up care, that it can be, that there are so part of the joy of perinatal work is that there are so many services and organizations involved that we really build a professional village around families, but then, inevitably that comes with a lot of kind of work in maintaining the communication around that village. And so I think I'll just kind of echo that, as well as I think just, that the whole process of becoming a parent, becoming is such an identity development, a role development. It's a whole piece of work in and of itself, whether or not you have mental health difficulties. And so the addition of mental health difficulties into that just kind of, it just really makes it more complicated. So I'm just thinking about, again, like those different step levels of where the NBO can be helpful, and how almost it doesn't matter what stage they are, because we're speaking to a different part of their journey, and not necessarily their mental health difficulties, and not even necessarily bonding difficulties.
Thank you so much for sharing that as well. There is another question here around what training would be needed and the costs, etc. Should every perinatal practitioner be trained conducting this? And that would be something that's quite difficult for us to answer. I mean, we would always recommend, as I said initially, that consider training as many people as you can, so that it doesn't become a service that's only offered to a number of families. By considering training all your staff, it means all families have this opportunity. And it's just such a great skill to have as a professional or practitioner as well, to be able to work this way with families. But of course you can, if, there's limited finances, you can choose and think about it. But what we highly recommend is that you think about pathway and implementation plan before you start, and that will help with gaining funding as well. And we're always more than happy to discuss with you, what our experience is. And we've got all these wonderful people who are already doing it that we can link you up with if you want to sort of learn more about how they've gone ahead and how they managed to do it. More about the training and costs, etc. You can find that on our website or by contacting us. And I know there's still a few little questions out there, and we can sort of ask you later whether you would mind if we shared contact details so people can contact you regarding very specific questions around some of the reports. People are quite interested in seeing some of the questionnaires as well. So I will make sure that we have a chat with our panelists about this. But thank you so much. And I am aware that we're getting to a point where we are getting to a close, and we want to think about next steps. So this is where it all goes. Okay, I hope. So next steps. So we are here to support you in making a big impact for the families in your service. You can contact me at any time. We're always happy to meet on a one-to-one, on Teams or Zooms, to discuss any plans that you may have. Or if you just kind of want to hear more about it, then please do get in contact with us. But we do really hope that you will think about having an implementation process, so that there's a clear structure from the start to the end, and then kind of ongoing support as well. Feel free to contact Tiffany if you have any inquiries about booking training for staff. Then she'll be more than happy to help you with some quotes and yeah, the cost and the logistics of it. As I said earlier, we deliver training both online and face-to-face. And that's something that we're also very happy to discuss with you as what might be most suitable for you. And if you're here and you're interested in any research and development, then please do contact Joanna, who is our research and development manager, who will be more than happy to hear your ideas and also share our experience using the NBO and the NBAS in research. So I want to just remind you about the Brazelton UK website. There is lots of information on training, research, information for parents, baby communication resources, and much more. And there are lots of other ways that you can connect with us. You can sign up to our newsletter, which we send out 4 times a year. And you can also read there about our bursaries as well as any other news that we have. And don't forget to also sign up on one of our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and X, and we're also on YouTube. And please don't forget Baby Communication Week, which is from the 3rd to the 7th of June. And by following any of our social media or visiting our website or signing up to our newsletter, you will learn more about it. And we hope that you'll be able to participate in it as well and share your stories. So just want to really say thank you, a huge thank you for all of you attending, a huge thank you to all our speakers. And I have to say a very, very special thank you to Sarah Lamb, who's our communications manager and who made all this happen. We would be really grateful if you could leave some feedback about this morning's webinar, and particularly how it has inspired you to use the Brazelton approach, and maybe using it in your organization or service. And there is an opportunity to be entered into a little draw. So if you'd like to win, then yeah, just fill in the little questionnaire after we finish, and you will be entered into a draw which you can win a Brazelton resource pack, which include one of our posters, some of our leaflets, and one of our lovely Brazelton there. So just want to end there by just saying a huge thank you to everybody. And do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Keep in touch. Yeah, and hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you, Inga, and thank you, as you say, to all our speakers, and for giving us such amazing insights into their work, and also for keeping to time, which is brilliant. And as Inga has said, thank you to Sarah Lamb, who's put this all together, and we hope that you're inspired, and we look forward to seeing you again, either at another webinar that we hope to run, or also on our trainings, or your staff on our trainings. But thank you so much for joining us and learning more about how to embed the NBO into your services with parents and newborns. Thank you.